Good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode number 73 of Merritt in the Morning. Jim is out on assignment today, so it's just going to be me. I'm Brad Klopfenstein. I am president of the Greater Lawrence Chamber of Commerce. Today, we're going to be talking to Jan Keefer. She is running for Indiana Senate District 31, which is Fishers and Lawrence. She is one of 8 people who are running in the 2 primaries, one of 4 Republicans, and then there's also 4 Democrats. But before we get to her, we want to thank our sponsors. First, I want to thank Stockyards Bank and Trust. Locations at 71st and Binford, Carmel, downtown Indianapolis, Plainfield, Greenwood at County Line and Emerson. They're in Center Grove on 135, opening any day now up on Michigan Road in Zionsville, Michigan Road 116th Street. And I think Fishers is potentially next on the docket. So too bad Jim's not here today. This is usually when Jim raves about how great they are with money. So I will say, put all your money in at Stockyards Bank. They're great people. I also want to thank the Honey Baked Ham Company. We have Mother's Day right around the corner. So they will hook you up. Any of your catering needs, they'll create big trays for you. Call them. Any size party they can handle. Or if you just want to go in there and have lunch or dinner, they are open 10 to 6 daily. They are at 96 in Michigan and Greyhound Pass in Carmel. Go in and tell them the Merritt in the Morning sent you, and they'll say, "Oh, that's fantastic." So
no discount.
Yeah, no discount, but yes, thanks for letting us know. Also, we're coming to you today live. We haven't done a live show in quite some time. We are at Cafe Audrey's here at beautiful Fort Harrison. Josh Gillespie, our producer, is over there. He's the one making all things happen. Thank you very much, Josh. So let's get into this.
All right, here we go.
Jan, or is it like in the commercial? Is it Jan? you know the is it progressive? Are helping young families become their parent or not become their parents? And there's the guy that's at the coffee shop and he's helping pass out all the coffees, and there's a cup that says Jan on it, and eventually he goes, and nobody's picking it up. He goes, "Well, it could be Jan."
Well, funny story about that. One of my best friend's son-in-law is named Jan, and she was looking for sizes one day for Christmas presents, and she actually texted me, "What size is your chest?" Like, what?
Well, thank you for asking.
Yeah. And she's like, oh no, that went to the wrong person.
That's funny. I hope you know her well enough to just give her a straight answer on
Yeah.
that. So let's start with your background.
Okay.
So
how far back do you want to go?
We're going to go from the very beginning, because I just learned that you've known Jim Merritt since you guys were in college, if not before.
Oh, yes. I've known Jim Merritt since college. So
okay.
He was an SAE, Sigma Alpha Epsilon.
He was, yep.
I was a Theta, Kappa Alpha Theta. So we knew each other through things like that. I knew his sister Jill, who was a friend of mine. And
she was a guest of ours once.
Yes, she's wonderful. And I was an SAE little sister, so I knew a lot of SAEs.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I first met Jim. And we had some political science classes together. Joe Hogsett was also in our poli-sci classes. Yeah. And he was an SAE too. So that election a few years ago was very interesting for me, being in the middle of it. And Joe had been a law partner of mine too. So
okay.
Yeah, so lots of connections all over the place.
Okay, so went to college, then you went to law school. Where'd you go to law school?
I did. I went to law school at IU Indianapolis, which is now McKinney School of Law.
Right.
So I went to IU Bloomington for undergrad and then McKinney for law school. And they had, luckily for me, they had an evening division. So I worked during the day and went to law school at night.
Nice. What was your day job?
I worked for AT&T, and I was in sales for AT&T.
Okay.
So it was, and I loved it. I loved my job, and
I can see that.
And I was good at it, and so it was a good time for me to do it. It was either, win-win.
Right.
If I don't do well in law school, I've still got a good job.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Maryland. And so
really?
if you're taking me back, I was born in Georgia.
Okay.
So Georgia Peach, or some people might say Georgia Cracker.
Yeah.
I like Georgia Peach better. And then my dad was transferred to Maryland, and so I grew up in a suburb of Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And then he was transferred to Marion, Indiana, the middle of my junior year in high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
That had to have been. Did you go kicking and screaming?
You know what? I'm the oldest of 5 girls, and so I had younger sisters who were kicking and screaming. So I knew I was supposed to set the example of being mature. And but it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. But it was interesting. My family's from the South, and growing up on the East Coast, we'd seen all that. Never been to the Midwest, and we all had kind of fallen asleep in the car. We woke up and we saw flat land for the first time in our lives. But the people in Marion were really, really nice, and they were very welcoming. So it was a good transition. It was an industrial town, lots of manufacturing plants there. We were not used to that. My dad was the director of the Veterans Administration Hospital, which was a big employer there. So a lot of people knew who we were when we first moved to town. That was surprising. Basketball was surprising. The first
Marion
day,
Giants, they were
Marion
good
Giants,
back then.
They were
the whole North Central Conference was good.
The North Central Conference, you got it. They were very good. And my mom's unpacking. My dad said, "Take your sisters to the basketball game. I hear basketball's big around here." I just got my driver's license. So I'm like, okay, good. I'm thrilled. And we get there and we go in. And I sit down. Somebody goes, "You can't sit here." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I thought maybe they'd gone to get popcorn. So like all 5 of us move up to the next row. They go, "You can't sit there either." And I'm like, "Look at what?" And they go, "All these are reserved seat tickets, season ticket holders. You need to go sit upstairs." We were like, okay. Basketball's big. Oh, it was. We won the state championship my senior year in high school. So that was a lot of fun. And I thought, well, that's it for Indiana high school basketball. And then I met and married Jan Keefer.
Then you've lived high school basketball ever since.
Ever since, that's right.
So your career, so you went from AT&T sales rep to taking night classes. What was your first law job then?
So the same job I have now.
Okay.
I went to work for a law firm named McHale, Cook & Welch, and I was an associate there. And then McHale, Cook & Welch merged with Bingham, Summers, Welch & Spillman. We became Bingham McHale. Then we merged with a law firm that had offices in Cincinnati and Kentucky, and then we were Bingham, Greenbaum, Dahl. And then we joined Denton's, so I'm now part of the largest law firm in the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me is, if I was just in the sign business, that's where you make all the money. Every time firms like yours merge or get taken over or whatever, it's all the signage has to change.
Signs, business cards, portfolios.
Okay.
Water bottles.
I don't know how you make money after all that.
Yeah, that's it. But it was good. It always provided new opportunities for us as attorneys, and especially it provided new opportunities for our clients. And I had a client who was in talking about estate planning, and then he left and he saw, it was Chinese characters, and he thought it might be Japanese. And he said, "I've just been sued by my business has some issues with a Japanese law firm." And he said, "Is this Japanese? Why is this here? Can you help me?" "Yes, we can." So it's good. It's been good for our clients.
Okay. So what is your area of expertise, or what do you focus on?
My area is family law.
Okay.
So I do family law. That's, a lot of people go, "Oh, divorces," and it is. It's primarily high net worth divorces. But I also do, child support, custody, work with some estate planning, contested guardianships, and adoptions. And adoptions are the best.
Adoptions are fun. Yeah.
I just finished one that took us a year to do, but it's when you're in court to finalize an adoption, best day ever. It really is. Yeah. It really is.
That's cool. So, all right. So let's talk since then. So you married your husband how long ago?
42 years
32
ago.
years ago.
42 years
42 years ago.
Yes,
So you were
June 30th, 1984.
All right. So
Coming
at
up
age
on
10,
years.
you were an attorney and you married Jack.
I did.
So you've lived in Lawrence or Lawrence Township.
Well, I've lived in Lawrence. I've lived in Lawrence here in this district for 32 years.
Okay.
But I lived in other parts of Lawrence before that. So I would say probably I've been in Lawrence for 40 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now I sometimes ask, I'm going to ask you, why do you love Lawrence?
Oh gosh. For me, it's home. Yeah, I think especially Jack coaching at Lawrence North High School all those years. it just wasn't a basketball game for us. It was a community. Jack always wanted to make sure that the basketball program had a family atmosphere. So we always had the team over regularly for dinners and parties or watch a big ball game or something like that. So we got to know the parents, and then we got involved in other things in the community. And this is just, it's a community feel. Lawrence really has a great community feel. People know each other. They've been here a long time. When we won the state championship in 1989, Jack thought it'd be really cool to have the guys ride a fire truck, because when he grew up in a small town, and when they won a big tournament, the fire truck would take them around the square. So he had a fire truck pick us all up back at like Binford and 75th Street, and we just rode, and we came to the back of the school, and we're thinking as the parents, the parking lot is filled with everybody from the community. And we went in, and people are just hugging us and crying, and you don't know what this means to the community. And it's just really eye-opening to see what a sports program can do, and winning that championship can do for the community, but what a community Lawrence already was. Yeah. And they felt this elevated them somewhat. And it was the first time that a Marion County school, a township school system, had ever won the state championship in basketball. So it was a big deal then. Yeah.
Wow, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
So I've got to ask, if you're out and about, obviously Lawrence has 2 high schools.
Yes.
Is there any animosity, or people saying, we're Lawrence Central fans? And
yeah, every once in a while. I remember when my son was young, we went to the LNLC football game, and we had to walk past the Lawrence Central student section, and they all started booing. And Jake was like, Dad, why are they booing you? And he said, Jake, that's a good thing. He said, my guess is some people don't know who the Lawrence Central basketball coach is. The fact that they know me, means something.
That's
so
an excellent point.
there is that rivalry there, and it is a big rivalry between the two schools. But I was on the Lawrence Township Schools Foundation, and I was president of the foundation at one point, and I started a student foundation, and they were student leaders, juniors and seniors from LC and LN. And the objective was for them to come together and raise money for the community, not for their individual schools, but to work together, because we all are one township, one community. And it worked. And they did that. And I think the principals at first thought, oh yeah, Jan, go ahead, do it. You're not going to raise that much money. And all of a sudden, the very first fundraiser, these kids raised like $5,000. And the principal's like, how much comes back to our school? And they're like, no. Remember, we all agreed they're going to find something that benefits the entire community. So, doing things like that can bring the two school systems together. And it has.
It does. Well, your husband's right. If you're not successful, nobody knows who you are. Yeah. So if they're booing you, you're doing something right. Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk politics now. So you're running in a Republican primary, District 31. That district's about 2/3 Fishers, a third Lawrence.
Yes.
Kyle Walker had served in that seat. Jim Merritt had served in it prior to Kyle Walker. So Kyle Walker announced that he was not going to run for re-election this year. Why did you decide to get in?
Well, I got a phone call from people in the community asking me to run. And at first I was like, really? I was just out of the blue. It was not on my radar at all. And so I talked to Jack about it, and he didn't say, well, if you want to do it, do it. Yeah. He said, you need to do it. He was all in 100% support, not just like, if it's something you want to do, I'll support you. He's like, do it. You need to. And I talked to my son about it, and he's like, Mom, I've spent my entire life watching you get things done in this community. And he said, you need to do it. You need to do it for us, meaning his generation. And how do you say no to your son? How do you say no to that when it's like, it's the next generation? And I've always had a motto, leave something better than you found it. And so this was truly my opportunity. Like when we travel with Jack's basketball team, we're in McDonald's or Burger King after a game, and I would make them pick up all the trash, and they would say, that wasn't mine. I'm like, I don't care, pick it up. Yeah. It's somebody else's. We leave it better than we found it. And I thought, this is my opportunity, not just picking up trash or volunteering, but for the state. I mean, the state's been very good to me. I've been educated here. I've had a career here. My family's here. And so, and politics is not something I know. I've never been in politics before, but the law is something that I know.
Mm-hmm.
And I've written legislation before through the State Bar Association on family law matters. And it's been enacted, and Governor Holcomb had me in his office when he signed it. So that's something I know. That's something that I'm good at. And I'm good at getting things done. And I'm good at getting things done quickly. And so I thought, all right, this is where I can make a difference. One last time. I hate to say that, but it is. It's something that I feel really great about. Right now, I look at our state legislature and I'm concerned because I see that it's a primary Republican legislature, which is great. And I think we should be able to get a lot of things done quickly, and that's not happening. I think I see a lot of people with personal agendas and maybe some political agendas, and people are in there because they are politicians. They either want to continue a long career in politics or use it as a stepping stone, and that's not me. So maybe I can go in, get something done quickly. We need to move. When things stagnate, like stagnant water, that doesn't smell good.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't smell good. So let's make it. We can do better. We can do better as a state, and we need to do better. So that's why I'm in.
All right. Hold that thought. Again, want to thank our sponsors. The Honey Baked Ham Company, locations at 96 in Michigan, Greyhound Pass in Carmel. Mother's Day is right around the corner. Heck, is today Arbor Day? What day is Arbor Day?
I don't know.
Get your Arbor Day ham or turkey at the Honey Baked Ham Company. They've got main dishes, sides, soups, the whole 9 yards. Anything you need. They've got soft drinks. Like I say, they've got dining rooms at both the locations. You can have lunch in there. So they can cater big, small, whatever you need. Call ahead. They'll have it ready for you when you get there. But keep them in mind. They make things so easy, and we love having them as a sponsor. So thank you, Honey Baked Ham Company. Also want to thank Stockyards Bank and Trust. Locations, my personal favorite, 71st and Binford. It's in Lawrence Township. Carmel, downtown Indianapolis. Plainfield. They've got Center Grove down on 135. They're in Greenwood and coming very, very, very soon to Zionsville. In fact, Jim was telling me last week that they're putting sod at the location, Josh. So they are ready to take your money, or really close to being ready to take your money. And I'm hoping that they call us and want us to be there for the ribbon cutting. So I'm dropping that hint right now, Paula. Make sure that we're invited. So, all right, Jan.
Yes.
Back to you. So you want to be our senator.
Yes,
All
I
right.
do.
So I want to get your thought just on some hot button issues. Data centers are a huge topic of conversation right now. What are your thoughts on data centers?
So data centers are somewhat concerning to me on a number of levels, and in many ways because they're happening so quickly, and I don't think people have the structure. Government doesn't have the structure in place to make sure that everyone's needs are accommodated. I started looking at data centers this summer, actually, before I ever thought about doing this job. But as I said, I'm from Maryland, and so I was in Maryland visiting family. And there's a data center that's going in Virginia, and they're getting their power from New Jersey. So they're taking all these power lines and putting all these power lines in through Maryland to get to Virginia. And they're taking land, like farmland and horse farmland, and just regular, wooded land by eminent domain from people, and they want to put power lines through them. So it's a big issue there, as you can imagine. And people in Maryland were getting no economic benefit from this data center. So that's when I started looking at my brother-in-law, who's also an attorney, has been sending me information. So, now here in Indiana, what do we look at? So for our district, some of the things that are concerning for me is that these data centers need a lot of water typically to cool them. So where's the water going to come from? Well, here we have Geist, and then there's Morse to our north. But Geist is fed from Fall Creek, which comes through Madison County. There's a huge data center that's proposed in Anderson in Madison County right now. So that data center goes in, that's going to take water from Fall Creek. Is that going to deplete the water reserves at Geist? Now, the other issue is there's the LEAP district in Lebanon. And so that LEAP district, which is great. I mean, I'm all for businesses and new business centers and innovation parks, and that's what that is. There's the Wabash River, and they've already been told they can't take water from the Wabash River. So Citizens has formed an entity to provide water up to Lebanon. They're building pipes, and they're going to transport the water up there. That water is coming from Eagle Creek, Morse, and Geist. Now, if we put data centers in Indianapolis, where does that water come from? Citizens. Okay, where does that water come from for Citizens? Geist, Morse, and Fall Creek. So I think there needs to be a plan in place. How are we going to accommodate the data centers? What's the return on the investment? It's my understanding that most of these data centers don't provide a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
Maybe 30 jobs. That's for the cost. I also understand they make a lot of noise. So there's noise pollution to the environment. Where are they going to be located? What is the residential area around it? How are those residents going to be affected? I don't think there have been any data centers proposed for Senate District 31, but we will be impacted by these because, first and foremost, the water that's going to be needed to cool them. And they're all, they're competing interests for it. So in Hamilton County, too, there's agricultural interest right next door. In Hancock County, lots of agriculture. They need the water, too, to grow our crops and to sustain our economy. So as a state, I think we need to see what's the return on the investment from the data centers. Are they getting big property tax breaks to go in? If they are, then, my property taxes went up. I don't know about yours.
Yes.
And
yes.
Mine went up a lot. And so now individuals are paying higher property taxes, but if these data center companies are getting a property tax break and not paying for them for a number of years, then that doesn't help the state with their budget. So what's the overall benefit? We have to look at the risk and the reward. What's the return on the investment? How does it impact not only our economy, but also our environment? And then I'm not necessarily against them. I just think we have to look at the whole big picture, see what the total impact will be, have some plans structured as they come in from a state perspective and say, if you're coming in, these are things we want you to do. And I haven't even touched on the electricity.
No. Yeah.
And so, the power to generate them, if AES, again, my electrical bills keep going up. I'm sure everyone's are. There's right now, AES is looking at, they're looking at being sold. We don't know what's going to happen, but with that sale, then what happens? It's a new entity, a new player. Are they going to raise rates? They need to recoup their investment. We all get that, but it's going to be on our backs. And if all of a sudden a lot of power is being used by the data centers, do they have the capacity to power that? There are just lots of questions that I think we have to look at and answer. And right now, I think, one of the bigger ones is, especially for this district, is the water issue. Now, I talked to someone yesterday. I was at the polls, and I saw a guy who's a brother for one of Jack's former players. And he works in California, and he started telling me he's going to send me the information. He's working on some data center proposals. They don't use water to cool them. They have another means to cool without having to use water.
Yeah, it's like a radiator on an engine.
Exactly. And then they don't use as much electricity either. So that's an alternative power, alternative to water. He tells me that they're quieter. So if all of those things are happening, then let's look at some of those issues and solutions to those issues there, and maybe make some of our requirements to allow for data centers to include some of those solutions that we can do.
Now, I know you've been to a couple of my chamber luncheons.
Yes.
Were you at the one that Jeffrey Harrison from Citizens Energy Group
I was not at that one.
it was fascinating to hear him talk about data centers. And this issue came up, and he actually had good answers. He's like, well, yeah, he goes, right now we're pulling water off, Geist, Morse, Eagle Creek. He goes, we're pulling it out of Fall Creek. He goes, we've got plans at least 12 deep on sources for water. He goes, we've got plenty of water. It's just a matter of where are we getting it from. But then Citizens also runs the sewage treatment plants for several communities in addition to Indianapolis. And so he was saying that when water discharges, it typically comes out cleaner than when they're pulling it out of like the creek or the reservoir or something, but they cannot use it to put back into the system.
Right.
However, you can use that discharge water for cooling on a data center.
You can. And there are one of Jack's best friends from high school that he grew up with. He now lives in France, but this is how his whole career has been built around water and taking salt out of salt water, but also treating water for industrial plants. And then they treat the water as it comes back out. And he says, it's cleaner than the drinking water out of your tap.
Yep.
So it can be done. I don't know that we've made that investment here in Indianapolis. But if this is the future, then we need to make those investments now. We need to get the water, work on the water, those 12 extra water sources, have those going now before the data centers go in. We don't need to be reactive and cause pain to our citizens, no pun intended there, but we don't need to cause that pain while we're working on it. Get everything in place first and make sure that we have the capacity to handle things.
Yeah. So now earlier, I want to pivot to our next topic. You'd mentioned your property taxes went up.
Yeah.
That's been a hot button issue at the State House. What are your thoughts on property taxes? Are they too high? Is that because we're spending too much? What are your alternatives? If you're going to propose relief, where does that money come to balance the budget?
Okay.
Just curious on your thoughts.
So I think property taxes are way too high. They're just way too high. And when we went to the new system where we reevaluated everybody's property, and it's done on an annual basis, at that time everybody's property taxes jumped way up, and it was a huge issue. And I was able to talk to Governor Daniels about it at that time. And one of the things I said to him was, my husband and I own rental properties that we bought for our retirement and also to pay for college education for our sons. And said, our property taxes for our rental properties this year went up $25,000 out of the blue, $25,000 more than what we'd been paying before. And he looked at me, he was, really? And I go, that's more than 1 year's tuition at Indiana University. So I said, we're saving this for college, but now we have to put it into taxes. A few weeks later, Jim Merritt came to me and said, I want to talk to you about this property tax issue. Here's some ideas we have. And one of them was the cap, 1% cap for homeowners, 2% for non. And so, Jim worked on that, and that's good. That was good at that time, but our taxes keep going up, up, up. Talk about affordability for young people to buy a house. So they can go into a bank and the bank is going to say, you're approved for this amount for your mortgage. Okay, that's great. They buy the house. Now they have escrow for their property taxes and insurance. That goes into their mortgage payment. Next year, property taxes go up. So their $700 a month mortgage payment is now $800. The next year it's $900. Oh, and they're young people. And guess what? They've just had another child. So it's one expense on top of another expense on top of another expense. Indiana has a very high foreclosure rate in the nation. Why? Maybe this is why. I mean, are the banks all screwing up when they give the loans? So I think this is a problem for property owners, rental property owners like Jack and I. Now, what do? Do we pass that along? Yeah,
you have to.
You have to. And so now rents go up, and people keep saying, "Oh, rents are too high around here." That's why.
Yeah.
That's why. So it keeps rolling around. We have to find another solution. So what do we look at? Well, when you look at your own home budget, you said, where do we cut? Maybe there have to be cuts somewhere. work within it and say, this is our goal, to have this amount of money coming from property taxes, because individuals shouldn't have to pay it. Seniors, I mean, you work your whole life to pay off your house. Do you own it? You don't really own it. You don't own it.
And that's where it comes into ethical concerns on, if you have to pay property taxes every year, you truly don't own your home.
Right.
So,
and it's incredibly frustrating when you hear about seniors who have to move out of their house because they can't afford the property taxes. They have to find some other place to go. That's not right. It just isn't right. It's always been the American dream is home ownership. And so if you lose it because all of a sudden you can't pay your property taxes when they're this high, then that's wrong. So what do we do? Where are we doing it? So like some people say, well, schools take up so much of our budget, and they do take up a lot of the budget, the state budget. And right now, property taxes aren't funding, a lot of the school budget. Other things are. But if we want to start looking at doing, schools say we need more money, so they're going to ask for money. Well, I told you I was involved with the Lawrence Township School Foundation. Yeah. So public school foundations, they provide money and resources to schools that don't come from the state. Mm-hmm. Lawrence Township had the very first public school foundation. And so, not every school system has one. Let's get them created. But how do we incentivize people to give to those foundations? So that's what we can do as a state. So we have in our tax code right now, if you give to a public university, Indiana University, Purdue, Ball State, you can get a credit on your taxes up for a certain portion of your contribution to the public schools. There's something else called an SGO, which is a scholarship granting organization. And these are 501c3 charitable organizations, and they give scholarships to private and parochial schools. If you contribute to an SGO, you get 50% tax credit, up to $5,000. And what you don't use, you can carry over to the next year, or the year after that, or the year after that. So we're already doing a tax credit for people who contribute to a scholarship fund for private and parochial schools. Why don't we do it for our public schools?
Yeah.
Okay, so give that same thing and incentivize people to contribute to a public school. Incentivize businesses to partner with public schools. Here in Lawrence Township at the McKinsey Center for Innovation and Technology, there's the Ed Martin Automotive Center. So Kathy and Mark Harrison, who own Ed Martin Automotive Group, gave a significant amount of money to the schools to create this automotive. It's a win-win. It's a win for them because they have kids coming out of high school who are trained on the technology that they need to use to do automotive repairs. It's a win for the school system because they don't have to use their budget to pay for all of this. And they're training kids, they're providing good education. So from the state standpoint, I think we need to look at more public-private partnerships like that. And that can help ease the tax burden on individuals because the state can use money somewhere else if they need to.
So
it's in my mind, it's easy. I know it's not that easy.
Yes, there are no easy answers on this. Simply because
no easy answers.
The argument for property taxes are they're stable because you cannot move your property. So they are drawn purely from the district or the municipality that you live in. Another problem is there is a 1% cap, but that money that you pay then gets split between the municipality, so the city of Lawrence or the city of Indianapolis, and then the other half goes to the schools. And once you're at the cap, then there's no room.
There's no room for them to move. And I understand that. I mean, it's a tricky issue. And so, like, what I'm suggesting about doing this with that incentive, that's not going to solve the whole problem, but it's an idea.
It's a start.
And so it's a start. So take some of those different ideas, and listen. And I'll tell you this: I'm a smart person, and I know that I'm smart, but I'm smart enough to know I'm not the smartest person in the room. Mm-hmm. I'm also smart enough to find people smarter than me on a certain topic and bring them together. And so you start with ideas, and how do we make this idea work? And we just keep going down the line. And so that's what we need to look at with property taxes. Some of it is, my neighbor's from California. She said when they bought their house, they knew that their property tax was not going to go up the entire time they owned that house. Now, somebody else, like you buy a house 10 years later, it's a different property tax rate, but at least it helps. It's stability for the homeowner. Okay, it's stability for the senior, right?
Yeah.
That's another idea. Somebody else, they were a realtor, and they said, well, in the state that they were in, to help offset this, the state paid for closing costs when anybody bought a new home. Well, you know, closing costs can be thousands of dollars. So that helps a new homeowner too with what they're doing. So there are things, are any of these the be all end all answer? No. But if we don't start talking about things and coming up with ideas, stagnate. I talked about that earlier.
Well, I remember when I was a kid in Indiana, I think your property tax rate did stay static the entire time you owned your home.
Yeah.
But then they found nobody was selling their homes. So people buy a house and then they never leave. And that created its own set of problems.
But and I understand when we give property tax abatements to businesses, that's an incentive to the business to come to this state. But, you know, it's on the backs of homeowners.
Yes.
And so we need to review that and look at that more closely. And it's a big issue right now that we really need to address.
We are talking to Jan Keefer. She's a candidate for Indiana Senate District 31. Do you have time for one more question?
Oh, I have as much time as you can give me.
Fantastic. All right. Hopefully Josh has
Josh
time
is
for
like,
one more
whoa, no.
Okay, good. So I think it was last year or the year before, the legislature granted the governor sole authority to implement a toll on I-70 from state line to state line. He has not done that yet, but that keeps getting dangled out there as a possibility. Since I-70 runs pretty close to where we are here, what are your thoughts?
Well, when you talk about being a younger person, when I was a younger person and we had moved to Indiana, I remember a slogan, Crossroads of America. And we are. 70 goes right through the state, it goes through the country. Took 70 straight back to Maryland.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. And when we talk about being a state that wants to encourage new businesses and business opportunities, and you're going to say that you have to pay a toll to come across our state to go east and west or hit 65 and go north or south, then that raises cost for everybody who is going to do it. It raises them for individuals, but look at the businesses. Every time they're going to bring something in for their business or take something out for their business, it's going to increase the cost of that product, increase the cost of doing business. And if we want to be a business-friendly state, then I think we really need to look very closely at that issue. I think it will take away that whole Crossroads of America slogan. It will take away we're a good state in which to do business. So I can see why Governor Braun has not done anything with that. It's a very tricky issue, and I think we need to look at other ways to make money for this state or cut expenses. You know, what do you do when you're at home and you don't have enough money coming in? You cut expenses. And so what are some of the things that we can do in that regard?
Okay.
Yeah.
So that as an extension of this question, how do we fix the roads?
Well, that's
get them to stay fixed. I mean, they can blame the weather all they want, but it's not going to change. Indiana is where we are, but I've been Ohio and Pennsylvania have the same climate we do, and they somehow manage to have decent roads.
Well, maybe we have some great universities that have some really great innovative biology and technology departments. And why don't we go to Purdue University and say, we're going to invest a little bit in you, Purdue. Have your students, your smart students, look at how do we come up with a compound that doesn't break down in these roads so much? I mean,
this is just my editorial. Do you remember way back in the 70s, Phillips 66 ran commercials where they're put like a mat underneath the asphalt. They're like, oh, roads will never fall apart again. I never heard another thing about those mats, and obviously we don't use them.
We don't use them because our roads fall apart. And, but then also from my perspective, as I drive around, I see that roads are better in different communities. And why? We're all in the same state. So why is it that you cross a county line and the roads are better in that county than another county? Same weather,
Yep.
So are they using different technology? Are they using different compounds? Let's look at that. I mean, there's got to be a reason.
There's the whole state road funding formula too that goes on linear miles as opposed to lane miles, which is kind of why Marion County gets screwed.
Yes. So, yeah. And being a Marion County resident, that's hurtful.
Yes.
We're the state capital. We're the state capital.
Yeah.
And so, you want to put your best foot forward all the time.
So, all right. Jan,
One more thing, can I talk about?
Yes, please. I was going to ask you, parting thoughts.
So parting thoughts, and this is when we talk about, where the state's putting their money and how we're being a leader. Last year, the state created a fund for pediatric cancer research and breast cancer research. Indiana University was involved in not in lobbying for that, but they were involved in looking at how it went. And talking about it and providing resources. So we have this fund that will provide for cancer research, for treatments, and for cures. We have the Simon Cancer Center. We have Riley Children's Hospital, two of the leading medical facilities in the state, if not the United States. No one's contributed to that fund. The state hasn't put any money into that fund yet. Now, it's not something that only the state can fund. Other people can fund it as well. Mm-hmm. But if you're a leader, and I've served on, I don't know, I look back at my resume, how many non-for-profit boards I've sat on over my years. Whenever we had a fundraiser or wanted somebody to contribute, we always said, everybody at least put $1 in. So we can say everybody on the board is all in. We had to be the leaders. We had to show the way. The state's done absolutely nothing with that. We need to do that. Cancer affects everyone. Everyone. I mean, either someone in your family or a close friend. Can we cure cancer? I don't know. I'm a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. Can we find better treatments? I'm told we can. And with more research. Why doesn't Indiana, Crossroads of America, let's be the leader in cancer research. Let's fund it. What does that do? That brings in more jobs as well. And if we're known as a leader in this industry, innovation, technology, there are going to be a lot of spin-off businesses that come about as a result of it. I think we're being very short-sighted sometimes with our funding and not looking at where we fund things that will bring in a different businesses, different technology, different opportunities for all people. We are not leveraging the public-private partnership that we can have with our state universities. The states give money to these public universities. They do wonderful things. Did you know Ozempic was developed at IU?
No.
No, most people don't know that. And it was. Is it manufactured here? No. Missed opportunity.
Yeah.
How many opportunities are we missing? How many opportunities like that are we missing where we can do something like that and keep our young people in the state? Indiana University has a Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We need to pay attention to that. I've talked to some of those students. Two of them, as freshmen at IU, already are working on patents for products that they've developed, that they did when they were in high school. These are good products. Okay, we need to work with them, keep them here, incentivize them to stay here in the state when they graduate. So those are things that we can do. So when we talk about replacing some of the money that from property tax, it's bringing other businesses here into this state, being innovative. Fishers has an innovation and technology part. Okay, could we have satellite offices there to do this cancer research? And yeah, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, bring it right here into District 31. So those are all things that as a state senator, I could be involved in and help create better opportunities and better lives for families that live here.
So this might circle back to our first topic. Imagine how people's attitudes would change if they found that AI and data centers can help cure cancer.
Absolutely.
I would think that probably somehow, some way.
So now we talk about what's the return on investment. There you go. That's the great return on investment.
Jan Keefer has been our guest. Jan, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic conversation.
Well, I've enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks to Cafe Audrey's for being our host. You've been watching episode number 73 of Merritt in the Morning. Jim will be back for our next episode. I'm Brad Klopfenstein, president of the Greater Lawrence Chamber of Commerce. I have been your host. Josh Gillespie has been our fabulous producer who got our live stream hooked up today. Once again, want to thank Stockyards Bank and Trust. Also want to thank the Honey Baked Ham Company, locations 96 in Michigan, Greyhound Pass, and Carmel. Don't forget, Mother's Day is coming. And for Stockyards Bank and Trust, they're everywhere. They're great people. Put your money there. We will see you next time. Thanks, Jan.
Thanks for having me.